Well, we are live. This is going to be good. We'll see how things go. So, we're kind of just waiting a little bit for the audience to build up before I bring tonight's guest on. But tonight's guest is from the title, Ron Reed. Um, Ron has worked on the series with Alex and Eli, Beyond the Trail by Small Town Monsters. And he's been on my show, Sasquatch: A Search for Sabe. And yeah, we just kind of been doing some stuff here and there. And so trying to just let people gather in before I bring Ron on. What is everybody drinking tonight? If you drink coffee, water, soda, beer, what is up? Dude Robot. Stevie, my man. How is it? Ronathan, I like that. The combination of Jonathan and Ronathan. Jonathan and Ron. I think Ron's such a cooler guy, but you know what? Enough talk. Let's bring Ron on. Oh. Ron? Wow, man of many words.
Yeah. Thanks for keeping that occupied.
where were you at?
I was picking up trash on the floor. You know, that's what I do a lot.
Oh no, that makes sense.
He was spotting for me.
You see what Stevie said is Ron hadn't shaved in forever. Oh,
see, you should have looked because the difference was the hat.
Yeah, because he's wearing a t-shirt, right?
Who? Oh yeah.
Yeah, no,
that,
you.
And that too.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm in my house right now, so it's a 60-40 chance that I would also look like that.
60-40. Which one is the 60? The shirtless or the 40% is the shirtless?
No comment.
All right. I guess I'm just whatever. But anyway, so tonight, yeah, Ron Reed, you're on here the show, the first inaugural live show for this that I'm doing. So I've been coaxing you to get on this show for a while now, and it worked. So for those who don't know you, Ron, tell us a little bit about yourself.
All right. Well, I think it's easy to just start with who I am, where I've lived. I grew up in Tennessee, and I was kind of a country boy out there in like farm country in Middle Tennessee. And I've been interested in Bigfoot since like 2005, 2006. You know, like I was in middle school at the time, and I mean, all these years later, I mean, we're getting close to 20 years interested in the subject, and I've been out in field doing field reconnaissance and research since 2010. So that's been, you know, going on 15 years of being out in the field, and I've traveled to all these different places. You know, like, and I can start that list, but we'll be here forever. You know, like been a little bit in Colorado, the Adirondacks, Arkansas, Texas, Florida, California, Oregon, Washington, Canada. Went out to Yowie country in Australia at one point. So I get around, and I have a lot of background in a little bit of bushcraft and wilderness survival, and been taking some environmental classes of how to be like a field technician and do wildlife surveys and things of that nature, and apply kind of what I've come to understand about natural sciences and a little bit of cultural anthropology, and bring that into Bigfoot research. But yeah, I mean, it's been a long journey, and I think like the subject of Bigfoot has had me branch out into other subjects of interest, and then I come back to Bigfoot with like what I've learned in a professional sense. So, but I don't know, like I can't say I've done too much. I go with you guys on a lot of your endeavors. I should be a content creator too, but I struggle with that a little bit. We've talked about that in the past.
Yeah, content creating's like it is a struggle.
Yeah. I
It,
think it's finding the time to do all the steps. It's such a procedural thing, and to get out there. I realize I'm really good at getting the content, staging, planning the trip, and everything, and being in and making the funds happen. It's the final production, that
yeah,
it's you just got to make the time, and if you're working on the side or trying to make other ends meet, it's you get that big roadblock, but it's coming along. We'll all get there, I think.
yeah. I was gonna ask, like, what do you think the hardest thing is about trying to not necessarily getting out in the field, but if you're wanting to be a content creator, what would you think is the hardest thing to do? What's like the biggest roadblock that you
For me,
would?
for me, it's making the technical lineup. Because your skills that you learn in the field, you just have to be patient, right? So like if we're having issues making discoveries, we'll learn from those experiences, and if you respond well enough, you can adapt and reach a new threshold there. For me, it's the technical aspects and the limitations of technology and how fast it changes. So if you say, "Oh, I need to get like a better computer," well, or I need to get a better camera for enhanced visuals. You want to film in full HD or 4K, then your computer needs to bump up too. Then your editing
Yeah,
software has to bump up too. And I think that's been like my challenge is getting all of that synced up, because I can usually get two of the three working in tandem. And then it's like one of the three has become obsolete.
because we had issues, or you had issues with that when we were in California, and it was like the last day in Bluff Creek, and I think that's when you discovered it, wasn't it? That technical issue side that you're kind of.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's like everything is defined by its formatting. And yeah, there's some things that just don't work with other things, and trying to convert it is a little bit of a process, trial and error. I think if I messed around with it enough, then I could make it work. But I think what I need at this time in my life is a lot of plug and play applications, and
Right.
I didn't get that. I got like I tried to get some different things that I'm challenged to work with each other, and I don't have the time to like in my personal life to kind of work on that. But I say that, but I'm making time for it.
Yeah.
So I am feeling better about like some of the progress I've made on some of the projects that I've been working on.
Now, some of the projects that you have been working on, let's talk about other projects you've worked on with other people. Myself included, Jonathan Easley of Western Bigfoot Exploration, and Alex and Eli from Small Town Monsters. Let's talk about how you and I met. So you've been in the Bluff Creek area before. Was this your second time up there when you met me and Stevie and all that?
So I had been to Six Rivers National Forest in that area of Northern California, Willow Creek, um, Hoopa Valley. I had been out there before. I had not been to Bluff Creek. I think I had gone to like I did see Bluff Creek. There was like maybe it was towards that area that we tried to hike earlier this year where it drained out into the Klamath. But I didn't really get into like the Bluff Creek, the Jerry Crew Bridge, Louse Camp until Steven Strufert kind of told me to head up that way because the Bluff Creek project was having a camp out. And that was so I had been out there initially to Northern California in 2010, had been trying to get out for like 3 or 4 years after that. Then it had like I was going through college and my first like committed relationship and like some career changes and stuff like that. So I didn't get back out to California until like 8 years after. So from like 2010, been dying to get back, didn't get back until 2018. That's when we met.
2018.
Yeah, and I had like planned this whole like long distance hike along the Bigfoot Trail, which was like this route that was it was made, but it wasn't like totally upkept. So
Right.
I
Was it
did
like,
about I did over 100 miles of it, and then like kind of stepped aside and said, okay, like we'll check out sections of it, but we're not gonna try to through hike it at this point. Like
wasn't like parts of the trail like not even like a trail?
there were so you get in wilderness areas and they don't always mark them. So you'll be going over rock scrambles, like just boulders on exposed mountain faces, and you're hoping that like if you have any tracking ability and somebody had been in there in the last couple of weeks and knew the route, you could kind of follow these slight scuff marks on the rocks that implied, human foot traffic. But like there were sections that were very barren and bare and not really indicating a trail. There were other
Right.
places that had trail work done, but the fire culture of that area would just burn over, and so there wouldn't be a trail. Trails would be rerouted. So if I was looking at like a map set from like 10 years earlier in like 2008, and a lot of that information had become irrelevant because they're constantly letting certain sections of trail return to its natural state and then forming new routes. So it was just kind of like a little bit of a nightmare to navigate this like route, trying to follow the exact path that connected everything together, because there were a lot of breaks in those areas. I think that it's still like intact now, but I don't know what's changed, and I don't know like its current state, And it was like until it got national recreation trail status, and they put markers along the way, and there's a committed like conservancy to like maintain the trail.
Yeah.
It just didn't feel like it was worth the risk of getting lost in the wilderness.
It was kind of sketchy from what you were describing.
Yeah, I mean it's a really great pathway though, and it's meant to showcase the diversity of conifer trees. And I want to give it another go at some point. But yeah, it was just I'd gone from like the Appalachian Trail, which like every 1,000 feet it seemed like there was a big white blaze painted on a tree for 2,000 miles. So it was like,
Good Lord.
for the physical aspect of it, I was up for the challenge because I had hiked that trail. But from the navigational element, it was a little bit different, because you had all of these aids on the AT. It's almost like you could follow it the way you could follow a highway,
Right. Yeah.
but that was different. That was different up there.
Now the 2018 trip when you came out to Laos camp, the whole Bluff Creek project was there. Bobo ended up showing up too, and we all went down to see these nests that these guys said they found. Now I didn't end up going down to the bottom, but you did. I mean, talk a little bit about that.
Well, I remember, I think Bobo went quite a ways down with us. Stevie went a little ways down too. I think he was there for most of that. It got to the point where it was so steep, but I think it was one of those guys that he was trying to find that location, and he went further down. Daniel Perez went with him. Daniel had his dog at the time.
Yeah,
Pre, and I was with Bandit. And we got further down. I think the highlight of that was we went down this really, really difficult hike. And then like Bobo, I think, was just like, yo, I'm staying here at this point. Stevie, I think, stayed there too. And I said, I don't really know if I want to go. Like, and Daniel was following. this individual just a little bit, just to stay with him, like as he was looking, it was kind of like they were last call, like, let's see if we can locate this, otherwise we're going to turn around. But I think the highlight of that was we were all sitting there, like Bobo just like was like, you think I should do a call? And I think like after watching the Finding Bigfoot or the commercial, I hadn't even watched a lot of Finding Bigfoot at that time, but the Bigfoot, Bobo doing a Bigfoot call was like iconic,
Yeah,
on every commercial or whatever. And I think just having him do that, like, it was cool. It was cool to be there, like officially squatching with Bobo, just kind of, and the nature of like how that, I mean, literally Steven told me to go up to this camp out and meet a bunch of strangers. Daniel Perez is there, and I'd read a lot of his articles and contributions to the Bigfoot community over the years. And he's one of the people that is like showing me the film site later, and walking me through that. And then Bobo's there, and I'm just serendipitously just squatching with Daniel Perez and Bobo. And it was just like, that was cool. That was a cool experience because, I'd come from like the eastern side of the United States.
Yeah.
Where Bigfoot isn't like as big. I mean, it's growing now. But it was just kind of neat to be in that situation, just to kind of seemingly trip and fall into it. But from what went on after that, like, I think that we had some issues. Pre got a little bit turned around. The gentleman, I think, was starting to have some difficulty, like respiratory wise or something of that nature. So like it was a little bit like nerve wracking.
Yeah, because that hill was, like, me and Kip bowed out, I think maybe the first 500, 600 feet.
Yeah, I'll tell you something, man. I did 2,000 miles in Georgia to Maine on that AT hike that I told you about. And I did all these other trails, 100 miles on the Bigfoot Trail, whatever. That was not a hiking trail.
No.
What we did that day was single-handedly the most steep climb that I had ever had to do. Like, I mean, you were maybe a couple degrees off from at certain points from needing like rappelling gear.
Are you serious? Because I did not.
It got pretty steep as it like dipped down to the river, and that's kind of where we all stopped and said, okay.
Yeah, no.
Like, I'm sure a mountain lion could do that, but it's still like most animals would not travel that. That does not look like a path, There wasn't.
Yeah,
they had some difficulty coming back up. And there's a point where Pre got like in some bramble, and I was like, and we didn't know where the dog was at first. But then I was like, Bandit, like in true Lassie fashion, I was like, help us find the other dog, Bandit. And he's like,
just
Bandit. Then he starts sniffing. He starts sniffing around, and he actually like finds the other dog. And and so I was following Bandit, and then I saw Pre because I followed Bandit, and I said, oh, it's over here.
Right, found her.
So that was kind of cool.
I remember when Kip and I walked back to the car. Kip was like, he was looking at the map and everything, getting like everything ready in case he had to call like search and rescue. I mean, not really search and rescue, but like a life flight more or less, because of how steep that was. Someone broke an ankle climbing out of that canyon.
Yeah,
there's no way we would be able to carry everybody out.
So here's what this is what kind of like made me focused on, like, I guess like that I responded really strongly to the Bluff Creek project, to people like Kip, and other members of the group, because you guys have that element of safety and like the wilderness ethics and stuff were all there. Some other camps that I've been in, I won't specify where, like I'd be with a group, I'd wander off like 10 feet off the trail in the dark, because somebody else wandered off, and like I was, like I went to like stay close to them in case something happened, and then somebody else on the trail like was ready to shoot me because they didn't identify me as like another person from the group.
Oh my God.
And they wouldn't like use the lights to verify, like, so they're like pointing a gun at me because they've got like low LED or whatever. And they thought that like I was a potential Bigfoot or danger of some kind, like next to that other person. And there's been some other things, just the campfire experience, like out there, we're having discussions on natural history, not a toxic, politically charged argument about who we hate and don't hate in office.
Yeah.
And I mean, all that stuff comes up, right, when we're exposed to each other for weeks at a time. But I just kind of responded a little bit more positively, strongly to like
The Bluff
that
Creek project.
Bluff Creek Project group. Yeah, those guys are pretty awesome.
So we got Douglas Shea in the chat. Doug Shea. Doug was with Todd Samples when they found those tracks on the Go Road just a few months earlier before we got there. So, what's up, Doug? Nice to see you in the chat.
Yeah.
But no, yeah, and that's I can't. Someone was holding a gun to you, and not like
they were like, okay, so they were like hand on it, you know, ready to pull it out of the holster, like, and calling to the other person, like, please get over here right now. You're not alone. And I'm like, yeah, of course, I'm here. And they're like, oh.
I got a question. Was it Alex?
No.
No, I just
no. Alex would shoot first and then ask questions.
Oh, that's too funny. Oh man. Oh no, if Alex, if you see that, that's not true. Okay, maybe a little bit. So like the whole Bluff Creek thing, and then so you met, like, you kind of serendipitously, ran into everybody, and then you joined us again in 2021, I think, right? And that was your like third time back there?
Yeah.
And, okay, so that was your third time back there. And that's when Alex and Eli were doing Beyond the Trail, Bigfoot at Bluff Creek. That was, I want to say it's like the third episode in the Beyond the Trail series.
Yeah.
Now talk about your experience and the whole trip during that whole thing.
I thought that was a really cool trip because when we went out to Bluff Creek, it was cool, like, to walk through, see the bridge where Jerry Crew's construction site was, and around where those first tracks were. This is back in 2018. Getting to the film site, like meeting some other people that had encounters in the area, like all of that was really, really awesome. But that October of 2018, we didn't have too much happen at Bluff Creek. I continued to go into Oregon and Washington and in British Columbia, and I had a few squatchy things happen out there. But ultimately, like, that whole trip was kind of light on the Bigfoot activity. And I wasn't like super convinced that there could be Bigfoot activity in Bluff Creek today. 2021 was kind of like the wake up call. Like, hey, there's some stuff. Like, we heard wood knocks. We had like rocks come down at you guys at one point from like a steep ridge. We encountered some, like, I mean, it was like Bandit went off and he was acting funny. We got some recordings that could have been like some whoops. But it just kind of like, it felt like something was in that area around Lau's camp and some of the areas where we were doing the research. And that is what brought us back the very next year. Cause I don't think I was like totally sold. It's hard for me. When I was in Tennessee, it's hard to get from Tennessee to California. That's why it took me 8 years to plan it a second time. But when I got out here, I moved up to Wisconsin in 2020. And that's when you called me up randomly after a few years of, like,
it's been
too much, Yeah,
it has been a minute since I talked to you.
Yeah. And you're like, you going to come out to California this year? And I'm like, hadn't planned it, but I looked at my budget and I said, why not?
Might as well.
Because I didn't make any plans after COVID, like when COVID came through, it was like, I can't, I might do some, like when I came up to Wisconsin, I drove around Bray Road looking for the Beast of Bray Road. And I did some stuff around the lakes where there were lake monsters reported, went up to the North Woods to do a little Bigfooting. But it was like, I was just doing like somewhat local stuff like that year. And it just changed. It changed gears when we kind of came out of that in 2021, and you're like, hey, what are you up to? I guess I'm going to Northern California, and working with them, it was fun. I really liked that trip. Bluff Creek. I
Yeah,
walked away from Bluff Creek feeling feeling like it was active, and I wanted to return. And then we went up to Oregon, and Oregon was interesting.
yeah, Oregon. Yeah, for me, the whole Bluff that 2021 trip, because I've been going there since like 2017 or 2016, and I've told you this before, and I think Jonathan and Alex, and I was like, the 2021 trip was definitely the most activity I've ever had, potentially being Bigfoot, and it was insane that trip because, like you said, the rock slides that happened earlier, everything with Bandit, everything that happened at Laird Meadow, and those areas that we were at, that we had everything happening, is in maybe a 5 to 6, 7 mile radius of each other. It's very close.
Yeah. Yeah, and I
So
mean, you would expect, like, if there's an animal active in that area, like,
it
you might
would
get
it would walk that
exposure.
far.
Yeah, you would get, like, that exposure from those different areas potentially.
And so
Uh,
that 2021 was cool. And then, yeah, like you said, we went up to Oregon. I think everybody kind of split off. I did follow you guys. We kind of went from. No, did we follow each other? Because I think we did, and you guys split off and stayed at the Indian hotel. The Stevie knows what it is if he's in the chat still.
yeah, there was a,
Seven, is it
Seven
Seven
Feathers
Feathers?
Resort,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, and, that was cool, that was nice. I get after, like, a week or 2 in the wilderness, it is nice to get, like, a lodge and, like, shower, clean up a little bit.
I kept driving straight on through. You guys are like, we're stopping. I'm like, man, I can't afford it. So I'll just see you guys later.
Yeah, but I think then I tried to meet back up with you because they had to circle back around. They departed, right?
Yeah.
And I said, well, I'm gonna meet up with Tate now. And I think we were like, at one point I was on one end of Portland and you were on the other, and like we crisscrossed or something, or you were here and I was gonna meet you there, and then you sent me like a text in the middle of me driving that you were gonna go somewhere else, and then we ended up like
Complete
like 2
opposite.
hours apart after like I kept driving to meet up with you, and I said, I'm going to hang out at this camp that I starred from my 2018 trip, like, because I wanted to visit it. So I put it on Google Maps as a starred location. I visited there, stayed a couple nights. It was like my little hub in Mount Hood. And then I went out and researched elsewhere. And so I said, well, I'm going to go back there and just like hang out and camp. And then I'll meet you at Cliff Barrickman's Bigfoot Museum in the morning.
And that was because everybody, Alex and Eli, were doing their thing, and then I ended up I was camping in the parking lot at the museum actually.
Yeah. Okay.
And then you were at this lake that you call Melody Camp.
Yeah. And I didn't expect it. I did not expect to have activity.
And that's the thing. That's what's funny. And I don't know if you knew it, but when you got to the museum, you're like, guys, I got this audio. And then you showed it. And then Connor's like, where'd you get that at? Because I recorded something very similar in the same area.
Yeah. So essentially, like, I found this place. I'll call it Melody Camp for now. And the context will make a little sense in just a bit. But like in 2018, I went there. And I don't even remember like why that place stuck out. I think it was like the body of water was there. And I said, hey, animals hang out by water. And there might have been sightings that were like somewhat in the vicinity, but like not any like place names and like easy, like there was nothing about that specific camp spot. I think I was traversing through Mount Hood on like the offbeat path and then saw like this little pave out area, turned there, saw a big open camp area, said this is a great spot to camp.
Yeah.
And so I stayed there for a couple of nights. And I mean, at the time back then, I thought I maybe heard like some like light wood knocking or something, but there was a lot going on. There were like chipmunks and like there were like red squirrels and woodpeckers and things like in the area. So like I didn't really think too much of it. I kind of walked away from that place like, yeah, it was nice, it was fun, but I don't necessarily ever have to go back. And the only reason I went back was it was in the vicinity and I saw it like close by on my way to try to meet up with you.
Okay.
So I was like, I can be at a camp in 25 minutes if I go like to that location again.
Yeah.
And when I got there, like you have to think like the context, and I hate it because it's one of those cursive Bigfoot things, you know, where you feel like nothing, you're not prepared for anything.
Because you said you didn't expect anything to happen, and then you get there.
Yeah, so I think I'm trying to think what happened. I think I was having technical issues with my field recorder.
Yeah, you were saying that you did, and
So
was it that mic right there that you have?
It was this mic. I had this mic and a different laptop. No, I think I had this laptop.
I think it was the same laptop.
Yeah, but I mean, I had this mic as like a last ditch effort. So I get out there, I'm trying to turn on the mic. I'm trying to get a backup mic. I realize I'm like all out of AA batteries. I'm halfway through the trip. Like we just used everything we had
in Bluff Creek.
Record stuff in Bluff Creek. Hadn't really fully resupplied. And I'm at like this other spot before we go out into the field. Like I'm
with everybody.
At an official camp spot. Yeah. And my car's a mess and everything. So I'm digging through my car. Well, the first thing that happens was, when I get out of the car, and I don't know, I think I might have told you this before, but it's like it doesn't come up when we talk about the vocalization because that's much later. But when I get out of the car, I'm like trying to get some paper, clean out the car a little bit, maybe start like a little bit of a fire and get the recorder out in case, you know, like that's always my first thing when I pull up to do squatching is let's do some recording just in case something happens, right? But I'm trying to get the other stuff going. One doesn't work. The other one's like missing its batteries and everything. and then I hear the wood knocks up on the ridge. And that's when I go in like panic mode. Like I gotta record this. I gotta get this stuff ready now. It's this urgent thing because I heard a couple of knocks up the ridge.
And there was nobody else in that area.
Further up the road, there were cars like off the shoulder, car camping and stuff. But like up the ridge there like is where like I started to hear a couple of like strong, just it's a quiet night still and just some nice pop, you know. And I think I heard like two of them or something like that, but it sent me into like not panic mode, like hyperdrive, whatever you want to call it, like to get things going. And this was the only option that I had. And by the time I like put the presence of mind, like I was like, okay, my field recorders are out of commission at this time.
Yeah.
But I have this as an option.
Yeah.
Like I'm at that point, I'm like, okay, but I can't keep this going and the audio, like the voice recorder app just on infinite, you know? So like I just had it ready. I had the laptop on my dashboard. I had the mic on top of my car. And I'm also really tired after like a day of driving. The last thing that I experienced at one point in the night, I was hearing like this banging on a metal drum. There's like an oil drum back there. And I used it in the past as like a gift station just to see if anything would tamper with anything. So I knew that there was like this big oil drum back there. And I heard something just bang, 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 bang on it, like just consistently for maybe 20 seconds or something. And like I perked up and said, what is that? There's a metallic banging. And then later I kind of made the connection based off of where I was hearing it and how it sounded, that it was like probably that drum. Well, but that was like on the other end. So there was the ridge, the camp, and then across the road where you pull in, there was the
lake, right?
The lake is, yes, on that, across from that area, across from, but like that drive-in area, that road that's campsites on, across from that, in the scattered woods, there used to be like some animal game trails and then that drum.
Oh, snap.
So like that's kind of so it was like complete opposite from the ridge where the knocks were coming from. And so that was a little bit like confusing. Like because there was this, and then like I don't know, maybe within an hour there was on the opposite end there was something going on there, but there were no flashlights or anything. Never any like signal of a human presence or anything like that. And all I could do is say, well, I didn't capture any of that, and it's weird, but it's like time to go to bed. But I'm like sitting in my driver's seat, like reclined, and I've got the laptop staged and the mic on the top of the car, and it's pretty much quiet. Like if that was like at dusk, like 8-9 p.m. or something, nothing really is going on for like the whole night. And I think it's between 3 and 4:30 in the morning. That's when things start to pop off. And
Again,
I wake up kind of inexplicably or whatever, and thought I
now
heard something.
you had your windows cracked too, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you're able to hear a little bit too. That's what
Right.
you like to do when you're car camping.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, which still it doesn't even like expose you to the full range of sound. It's not as like it's better to be in a tent, honestly, because you're still most of that sound's being restricted by the window. But I got that I heard something woke me up, and I'm like, why am I awake? What's going on? And then I listen and I hear some vocal in the back, and like even at the time I'm like registering it like it's possible coyote. I don't know what it is. It's all I'm hearing is a woo, and like I'm just like whatever, hit record, and then like I'm just sitting there and it goes off, but the sounds get weird, and like I'm sitting there like in real time I'm like you hear something a little off and you're like, can that be a coyote? I got to keep listening to find out.
Right.
What? No. And then you like the whole time you question it, and it's not until you really like capture something like that and can play it back multiple times where it starts to create a case that maybe this is, like your target species or what you're looking for.
At any point did you ever get out of the car and like try and listen to it, or did you just?
I didn't want to interfere with the recording.
Right.
Like I didn't want to start making a bunch of sounds like right at the and think about it too. Like if I started to like shuffle in my seat and try to get out, open the door right at the like some of the highlights of the sound, it would have ruined it. Like if I had opened the door and you hear a ka-chunk instead of a wow, like
yeah,
then it would have ruined my recording. But essentially, like the reason why I call it Melody Camp is it's one of those like sing-song
kind of vocalizations
that people often report and sometimes capture.
And it wasn't and unbeknownst to you, I think it was the next day when you showed it to everybody. Connor said, "This is what what I said earlier."
Yeah.
He recorded that same melodic kind of vocally sing song.
So everybody was like thrilled to like meet up with Cliff Barrickman at his museum because they're all doing interviews and stuff like that. I'm preoccupied with the sound recording.
Dude, you were like on the tape. You were like on the
playback issues and stuff initially.
Yeah, you were listening to it the whole time we were at the museum. You were like on your headphones.
Dude, and I got mad respect for Cliff. I think he's an awesome guy. But that was just one of those things I was like, I can't even be present for the situation because this thing, like I think I've captured like a Bigfoot vocalization and it's decent quality, but I was having like issues like with the recording, and I like the app that it was on. I thought I was gonna like delete it and I was gonna lose it. Like, like, oh, bad luck again, the
curse of Bigfoot.
Yeah, fortunately that didn't happen. But I finally got it to play back, and I said, okay, I want to show people. Cliff was in the middle of the interview for Beyond the Trail.
Yeah.
And so like Connor is there, and I said, Connor, what do you think of this? Should I like show this to Cliff? And, like this is what I captured in just a Mount Hood last night. And he plays it back, or he starts listening to it. He's got headphones in, and I think I remember that. Yeah, dude. He's just like, and I'm like, what? And he's like, I recorded this. What was it, like 2 years ago?
I think it was
2 years ago, less than 5 miles from where I recorded it.
It was really close. Yeah.
And he had he had played back his sound, and it was again like a sing song. It was like a lower quality. I think it was captured on a different device or like his
But
phone or something.
the howl, the sing song howl almost sounded identical though.
Yeah, like it could have been the same individual.
I was thinking it might be the same individual.
Yeah. The pitch is very similar. Like, I mean, it's a different cadence. Like, it's a different, it's definitely a different sound.
Man,
Like, it's not like a replicated recording. It's not like somebody's just playing the same audio recording out there.
when you told me that you had that
Variation.
happen, I was so upset with myself that I couldn't like meet up with you.
Yeah.
I was kicking myself because like, dang it, I could have been with you that night and heard that myself.
We were debating for a while of where we were going to do research later that night. And I remember that like we got enough, like we had enough of the conversation to where we drove by, but we were late enough in the afternoon. Some other campers had come in.
I remember that.
And we lost that spot. I messed up. I messed up because I should have left my tent there and just said, I'm going back no matter what, with or without you guys. And then if I had reserved that spot, you and I at least would have camped out there for another night.
I would have done it because I think you and I, everybody kind of split off at one point, and you and I did go to that spot.
Well, Mount Hood is such an active area, and Cliff is like such in that, like Cliff and Connor and the NABC, the North American Bigfoot Center, is so like ideally positioned to receive reports from Mount Hood.
Yeah,
they get a lot of like fresh reports. And so, like, when we went there with Small Town Monsters, like Alex and Eli were like, "Yo, like they said that they had a recent thing over here and over here." And I mean, any of those areas would have been potentially fruitful spots to investigate. And that was our whole debate: was should we go to where Ron allegedly
captured like a sound? Yeah, like the very next day, basically. It was like, But I don't know, like, you know what? Because we did end up camping. I don't know, as the crow flies 12, 13 miles from that area.
Right.
I mean, it wasn't terribly far. And we did have stuff happen because I think we were trying the whole technique we've been doing, you and I. It's like, hey, let's just be abnormal, play some movies or video games, in which we were doing that. And I think that ended up getting like some kind of, because we were hearing like, I don't want to say it, I remember as being like a kind of a growl kind of type sound. I thought, or maybe that was just.
I know I was super tired after that day
because you actually went to bed, didn't you?
Yeah. Like I was like, I remember everyone had the projector up. You guys were playing some Lego. Was it Lego?
It was Lego Star Wars.
Yeah, so you were playing that on like a projector screen, and it had all those like blocky
sounds,
like toy sounds and stuff, and it was like, but yeah, I was just out and I just fell asleep in my tailgate with my tailgate up, and
so yeah, I think you were asleep, and then at that point it was just me. It was me, Alex, and Eli, and I think Sam.
But we did a lot that day. You got to think like that. I think there's multiple reasons why something could have stirred there. Like whether the growls. I think those guys, didn't they report some possible knocks too, that they had issues with their recorder.
Yeah, so that was early in the morning, and that I was asleep, and I think you were still asleep. But Alex and Eli said they woke up hearing knocks, and they checked the recorder, and the recorder wasn't working.
Yeah, I think so. I think that there might have been some activity because of everything that kind of was going on at that time. When we got there, we all fanned out we were going to walk and look for tracks around a body of water there.
And then you and I ended up I don't know if we got nervous.
We split up because it was almost dark. It was getting dark, and we wanted to be back at camp in case we needed to do like a search party.
And we took the wrong way back. But
what that did was that split us in all these different directions. So we were covering new ground. Those guys were out covering different ground. And then when everybody came back at camp, you got to think like the potential to disturb something in that
was greater.
Local environment was greater when we split up and fanned out and did all that. And then we had the interesting things in our camp. We tried Bigfoot research. We did the Lego Star Wars thing that was making a lot of noise out there. And so, I mean, it could have been a couple of things that triggered a reaction. Unfortunately, we didn't capture that, because we had some technical shortcomings. But uh, that was the last camp. That was the last thing, and then everybody went home after that, right?
No, there was more because there was a spot that Connor and Keith took us to.
That was before.
And that was before, and I think because it was a sweet spot, and we were kind of already set up. I think you and I had our cars parked kind of tailgate to tailgate because we were going to car camp there, and everybody was going to be down at the bottom.
Uh-huh.
And that's when we were seeing like tiki torches and stuff, like further to the next camp. And all of a sudden, apparently, this guy comes walking out of this trail and down the road. I didn't see him. I can't remember if Sam, who was with us, didn't see him. And because I think I was like getting my shirt changed or whatever. Then I walked up to the cars where everybody's like gathered around Keith's truck. And Connor is like, Tate, what's the weirdest thing you've seen? Like totally deadpan. He's like, what's the weirdest thing you've seen today? And I thought it was like a trick question. And he was like, no, there was this guy that came walking quite literally like in spandex. Like it was the weirdest thing and kept walking past us.
It was like post dusk. It was like the last waning light of the day. And he's just this shadowy figure. And he's like wearing did he have like a hat, like a cowboy hat or something on?
No, he just had long hair. Really, the dude was like skinny. It looked like,
he
like those
by and he was like, hello.
And just kept walking.
I mean, I think we just played it off. I think a couple of us were there and we just played it off like, hey, how's it going? But we caught him on the dash cam. But he kind of came out of like the woods. He just materialized out of the woods.
See, and that's it. And that's the funny thing. I think Alex is like, dude, I wish we had that on camera. Nobody was like realizing. It was like, well, Keith, you got the dash cam.
Yeah.
I told Keith, he's like, you got it on dash cam, dude. It's right there. And they're like, oh crap, you're right. So I think we ended up like taking the memory card out and trying to play it, but I think that was acting weird.
Yeah, I think it was weird. Like those guys had tiki torches out at their camp, which I mean, here's the thing: is we thought it was so weird. I think what was weird was they had like skulls.
Well, it was also during fire restriction. There was like a fire restriction too.
Okay, yeah, but people break that rule all the time.
I guess that's true.
They don't have to be weird. I just remember we came off of that trip. We left. We got nervous. These could have just been like some weird like goth people that were just like camping in the woods and telling spooky stories about Mothman. But in our mind, they were like bona fide like Satanists. Like
I think we came to the conclusion they were
people or something.
I'm telling you, man, they probably did kill somebody.
I don't know, man.
It was creepy.
They were weird. But like it didn't. I don't know if it was like harmful weird. But so that was one camp we almost stayed at.
And then we
we ended up at that other super sweet spot.
And it was like on a ridge or flat, like kind of flat plateau overlooking the whole valley.
And there's a lot of cool stuff that happened there. I have so many like of my best like Bigfoot memories like right at that spot. And I mean like I don't want to understate like all the other places and memories that we have, but I just like when I think of that camping area, I always want to go back because there's so many things. So on the drive up there, we had a really interesting tree break that was like 8 feet off the ground. And like that was kind of cool. We get further up there though, we get to the actual spot and we determine that this like there's the rock outcropping that everyone's pretty confident was like a sighting in one of like John Green's books of that somebody reported of like Bigfoot lifting rocks and finding hibernating rodents and eating them. And they were saying like they were like ground squirrels or something like that. Well, I stuck around. I heard rodents vocalizing in the rocks. And then I'm like watching them and then I see their pika. So like pika are like a little type. They're actually related to rabbits. They're not rodents at all. But I just remember thinking it was so cool that like we had found this and like discrepancy within the sighting saying ground squirrels or something. It was just a misobservation and that there's like a colony of pika living in that area. And so then I'm just thinking like, was this Bigfoot like come back to this location because this is like an active reoccurring habitat, this is a a home range for this animal, like for pika, for however many years, because at this point, like that report's it's got to be up there in years now. It's over 50 years.
Yeah.
Maybe even getting closer to like 100, but I don't know. But it was just really neat to go to that location and make some observations, to kind of lend some validity. Like, I mean, it could have just as easily been a barren rock outcropping where somebody made up a Bigfoot story. But the fact that there was something there, rodent-like, that kind of validated that, yeah, there was Bigfoot was eating something over there.
And the spot we were, originally we were going to stay at where we saw that colt. That wasn't I can't remember. Is it like, what's that book? But there was like a bunch of Bigfoot sightings, and one of them was
Oregon Bigfoot Highway.
Yeah, and I think the one we were reading in that area wasn't a father and son camping and fishing, and like this Bigfoot was like walking closer, but like the father actually ended up trying to push it away with the fishing pole or something like that.
He was like trying to keep it at like arm's length or pole's length or whatever.
I was like, that's creepy.
Yeah, that book, I can't believe I don't have it, first of all. But I want to buy it when I make a return. Like, I'm using that as like
the reason to return.
When I go back to NABC, like I was like, okay, I know one thing I'm gonna get from that store.
Is that book? Yeah, I'm gonna get it too.
But the thing that was cool for me, I was flipping through that book, and that spot, the Melody Camp, the actual name of that is like got 3 or 4 sightings in like within one chapter there.
What?
So like that was an area that I didn't know. Like, I could tell you based off its vicinity that it could be in good Bigfoot area, but it wasn't until after I got my sound recording, I went in there, I found that Oregon Bigfoot book, I opened it up to see, like, I looked in the index, and then there were like a cluster of sightings from that location.
Dang.
Like, I know that I want to say there was at least 3, but I know that it was more than 1. I can tell you it was somewhere between 2 and 5. But to just open up an Oregon Bigfoot book and find that spot that you just
were at
some sounds. Yeah, I was like, whoa. But yeah, no, I definitely got to get that book.
And then the place where we kind of camped out, the plateau, I think what Alex said, he might have heard gunshots or possible knocks, but he didn't get a recording.
Yeah, like something, because we were like overlooking like a little bit of a valley.
Yeah,
we were kind of like up on a ridge. But the thing that was really cool about that area, like, and aside from like the active Bigfoot research and stuff that we were doing, we tried a lot of cool research techniques there.
And that's where we came up with the pheromone drone idea. Because I kept seeing Alex drag the pheromone chips around Bluff Creek, and it just... It's funny because your guys' reactions to that was like actually funnier than anything. Because
Bluff Creek. Tate would make you would make all these ideas. You'd be like, "Hey, I got an idea. We should." I don't know. You just say something that nobody wanted to do. Just like, I can't even think of anything. But it was just like,
hey, let's drink beer from a boot and then go walking without our shoes to see if we can find Bigfoot.
Yeah.
Something off the cuff wall thing like that.
All right, go. Hey, I dare you to lay down in the fire and then jump into Notice Creek real quick before you die. I don't think you actually said any of this. We're just paraphrasing. We're just like coming up with the level of suggestions that you would make, right?
Climb that tree naked, and so you'll blend in better, and then just way up there and see if a Bigfoot.
Yeah, then slide down it like a fireman pole.
So that's the context of kind of what you guys were dealing with for 2 weeks in Bluff Creek.
Right,
or so.
And we're just kind of so then Tate says, "I have an idea at Mount Hood," and we're like,
everybody like stopped. And I saw eyes.
Even Keith and Connor, who knew you for like a whole like couple of hours, right? Like really like spent like minimal amount of time with you. Even they kind of looked at you at that point because you said, I mean, you told them about our gang name, which is like I won't go there. But like,
Yes.
but yeah, so everyone kind of like looks at you when you say I have an idea. Everyone's like,
I saw everybody's eyes were rolling. They're like, "Oh no, I could."
but then you said,
Oh, as I was saying it, somebody was starting to say, "Tate, don't say anything," and I cut them off when I said, "Why don't you attach the pheromone drone or pheromone chip to the drone and fly that around?" And they're
then,
like,
yeah,
that's a good
yeah,
idea.
everybody came around to it. We're like, hmm. And to my knowledge, and I think a lot of people will attest the same thing, is the first association with
With a
any type of
drone.
Bigfoot scent pheromone and a flying drone was made on that day. I've
Yeah.
never seen any other researcher attest.
And that's what Connor, everybody said.
Later, people made that claim, and that was after we had done that. So
yep.
So I still like will contest that. Anybody that thinks that they're the forerunner in that type of thing, I need to see dates. I need the proof. But I know that there's at least one well-established group of researchers that are claiming that they were the first, but we know they weren't.
Yeah, we actually were. We pioneered it.
Now, the application, how things were made, is a little bit of a different arrangement. So if you're going to get into semantics, like you could debate a certain context. They were first in some regards, but no, like you came up with that idea.
I still look back on it. I was like, I'm probably never going to be as smart as that again on that day.
No, you got at least one really banger idea left, I think.
One more.
One more. Don't waste it.
Could you imagine?
But you know what's cool too? Like I look back on it now, and I didn't really understand the significance of it. So you had all this. That was another awesome element of why that spot in Mount Hood was so special, right? To like our Bigfoot stuff. You had an innovative on the spot, one of the best ideas presented on the fly in Bigfoot research from Mr. Hieronymus.
In a long time.
Came out of fucking freaking left field. Like
that's hilarious.
And it was just like, whoa, but that was a surprise. That was a treat. But the other thing, the last thing that I think, like the last day we stayed there, we were like hanging out that morning at camp, kind of looking at the sunrise or whatever. And that's when Alex shows me some of the audio clips that he got from Area A. Before anybody had made it out there, he showed me those audio clips of the baby crying and some of the sounds. He's like, I just got a contact from somebody that's saying they have some pretty squatchy things happen. And he played that audio, and I heard some of that. And that was like so exciting because the only thing I'd really heard that like really impressed me, like I guess in like the Bigfoot audio capture, aside from what I had just captured a few days ago, right?
Yeah.
Like was the like the Sierra sounds were kind of intriguing to me, and a few like old recordings, but like I hadn't heard anything from like that from before or from after like the 90s. Like where I was like, oh yeah, like a lot of the early 2000s, like I hear that and I'm like, okay, that's an owl or that's a barred owl, that's a red fox screaming, like the mating call or something. There's some good ones out there, but like from my exposure, like I was just like not like extremely impressed with any Bigfoot vocalizations. He shows me those and I said, whoa, yo, you got to follow up on that. He's like, yeah, dude, I got to figure out how I'm going to get to Alaska. Like me and Eli are going to go and do this. And
because he sent me the audio and I listened to it. I'm like,
it's exciting. It's exciting. You're like, oh, there's hope. This is like cutting edge. This is good stuff. Good stuff.
Good stuff.
But I think that one of the things that was really cool was later. I didn't know at that time that I would be on that expedition because we go home we don't really say anything to each other for like the rest of the year, right? So like July passes into August, September. Like I don't know when I think the trip was in May, and he calls me mid-April,
Oh my
and
god.
he's like, "Hey, do you want to like go to Alaska in like 2 weeks?" And I'm like, "Dude, I need 2 weeks of notice to like be able to go on a leave from work." But and I almost quit that job, and I didn't get the leave approved until I was on the plane going.
Oh my god.
Um,
You were like already.
I was like, "Hey, it's been fun, it's been real, but if you're not gonna work with me on this once in a lifetime opportunity, I'll just I'll cut my losses."
Dang.
Um, but there I am, like on the plane, and then I get the email like, "Your leave has been approved. We didn't want to lose you." But
So funny.
like that was like that whole trip was a whole nother experience. And that was awesome. And just looking back, if like where the first teaser of that was, hey, here's some interesting sound clips that from Alaska that I'm going to play for you at a camp in Oregon,
Yeah.
and then I'm
Yeah.
just sitting there like, that would be so cool to get to investigate, but you guys, you don't want me. And then I get that call, and then I'm there. That was cool.
Wasn't I was supposed to go on that trip too, but I couldn't swing the money.
It was, yeah. I'm that was one of those things too. Like it was a crunch, but
Because we literally just get home. We literally just get home because you drove from the Midwest and I drove from the Midwest, and we're all that's not a cheap drive.
no, I don't know how. I mean, this year I did it on credit, and I'm still dealing with that. Like this past year,
Dude.
I'm still recovering from that one.
Because well, think about this. Like leading into 2022 when we went back out there, I was it. We ended up driving. I ended up driving from Florida to California. We met up in California, and then we went from Bluff Creek to Oregon to Washington to Idaho, and then back to the Midwest.
Yeah.
And then I had to go back to Florida after the Midwest.
You know how many miles I traveled for Bigfoot this year? I tallied it up.
Okay, I gotta know.
For my trips, and because I went to Colorado, I went up to the North Woods of Wisconsin, which is a little bit of a haul. I did like 10,000 miles.
Dang.
Yeah, from like most of it was that West Coast, and then traveling the length of California. But like the little trips added up to, like going out to Iowa and northern Wisconsin and a few spots there. But yeah, it's we get around when we do this.
Oh yeah, for sure. And that's the other thing I want to ask you about, because obviously you've been to like the Pacific Northwest, but I had a spot that I researched a lot when I lived in Ventura, and that was your first time in Southern California.
Yeah,
you kind of seeing that area. I think the night before, you and I camped at like another spot. It was like kind of sketchy to get to, and then we met up with everybody else, went to my other area. Tell me what your initial thoughts were, and then tell me what you think of the potential for that area that we were in.
So I got out there. We started going around. So first of all, like I think we got up to some areas, right? But the weather kind of had us like dodging certain conditions.
Yeah.
Like hurricane moving in. So like we'd get up to one spot, like this is a spot. And before anybody could get out and do like a local recon of the area around where we were, we'd like get a weather report about the hurricane and like think about the drive up there and say, oh, well, maybe we need to get back down the road, in case there's a mudslide or something, But I remember going up there and like there's a lot of deserty stuff, right? And you're seeing desert scrub and plants, and I'm immediately skeptical. Just because even like if you're looking at apes in Africa and Asia, like there's not any like desert ape. Humans are the only desert ape, like if you're gonna make that argument, like, but gorillas, chimps, orangutans, like any type of monkey, like they're in jungles, they're in forests, they're like they need those types of environments, right? So I'm there and I'm like, okay, can something adapt to like a lot of this desert? And we get up the mountain and I see like some mature timber and I'm like, okay, we are in a forest, we are in some different conditions here. And I was kind of surprised to see a little bit of the variety. And I think like Southern California is interesting because when you're in the lowland, yeah, you're like in desert. But then the higher up you get, like then all of a sudden you're in a forest. And,
yeah.
Like you're almost like I'm almost used to seeing like the opposite, like when you are in fertile valleys, like Six Rivers or something. But then you get to a certain elevation, and then it becomes like an alpine area,
kind of like a no-go valley. It's the same way.
Yeah. That'd be like the reverse of what we were seeing in Southern California. You got the forest on top, and like the dry, arid conditions without any food potential down below. But then
No-go valley, it was the opposite. Like it was fruitful at the bottom and barren at top.
Yeah. So that was kind of like an exposure to that. I mean, I'm still like really wondering how something could sustain itself. Like, does it have to drop down? Does it get some of the water potential? Like, does it get water from cacti or something, or the yucca plants that might be growing there? Does it go all the way down through those exposed areas to get water? Does it like where exactly would something dwell? But it's still a little bit of a mystery to me, but it has way more potential upon boots on the ground investigation than just like my personal assumptions.
And that was a crazy trip because we already had like the days planned and everything.
Yeah.
And I think we had like a running theme for this trip this year because like every year seems to have its own theme, and this year was like life and death close calls.
Yeah.
Because the whole BC-19, we had an emergency cowboy camp, and then with Aaron and Chris at the film site, none of us saw them, and so we were kind of thinking we were going to go look for them.
We thought that some people were lost. What else?
And then
there's a lot.
There was like lightning. We were seeing lightning storms while we were in the redwoods,
right?
And then the whole place caught on fire.
Yeah, so we left the Klamaths and like some fire started going on there. But then like even when we were in like the Mendocino area, we were heading into my area wondering if we should not, because there was a fire somewhat close to like the way in.
But then we ran into that like the firefighter guy in that truck.
Yeah.
And he was like, "No, you're good." And so that was, then we had the fires, and then you and I were in the redwoods, and we've never talked about this on camera or filmed it, but because we weren't filming, we were just kind of hanging out, wanting to enjoy everything. We were making tacos, and as we're putting stuff away, all of our lights are off. We're just kind of walking back and forth, and it's pitch black too. There's no moonlight at all. And I think you might have been in your car, getting ready to get in your car, and we hear like come crashing down like towards the river.
Yeah, and that's interesting because we literally so we weren't even going to be there for like an hour and a half, right?
But we ended up being there.
Yeah. Our initial plan was we were going to go to this spot. We weren't squatching or anything like that. It was a day use area after hours. It was technically closed.
It was like 2. It was like 1 a.m. at this point.
But we wanted a picnic table to like get our cooking gear out. That's why we were there.
Yeah.
Right. Just so that we can get the stove and cook the taco meat and make the tacos. And while we're there cooking and while we're putting some of our utensils away after that, like then this big crash happens, and we're still like to this day we're kind of like debating back and forth what's more likely? Was there something like a Bigfoot in this like wooded area where they're, you know, not terribly far from where sightings have happened in the past? Like, did something push over a dead tree, or did a redwood like just drop a huge limb, like
And that's like the thing,
randomly, like
because
these 2,000-year-old trees just suddenly dropping, you know, what sounded what had to be at least 100 years worth of growth, whether it was a limb or a whole tree, you know, like that, the size of whatever came crashing to the ground
was huge.
was huge. It outweighed, you know, like
It's
us. It was probably upwards towards like the weight of like our vehicle, you know.
easily, dude. It was the weirdest thing. And then I was like bringing it to your attention. I'm like, dude, you know what it reminds me of is it reminds me of like when Bart Catino and Robert Leiderman were in the redwoods, and Robert calls it the tree failure video, like the tree just fell over.
Yeah.
But then Bart calls it the tree destruction. So it's kind of like that split where it's like, well, could the tree have fallen over at that time, or could it something have done something, pushed, you know?
Right.
And who knows if it was a branch? Who knows if it was like a smaller tree? I don't know, but whatever it was loud, and we were like, "What the heck?"
Yeah.
And so, you know, there was that, and then when we got down to Southern California, we were seeing, oh, there's a hurricane coming through California in like 80 years, and we get to be in the middle of it.
Yeah. And then, and you know what's crazy is like we were finally like at this point we were already in that like mindset, like, okay, we already know everything is bad is gonna happen. We're gonna have a high heat index by the time we get to Iowa, you know, on our way back. We're gonna have like all this
Yeah.
terrible stuff happen. All our trail cameras in Bluff Creek are gonna burn up, like in the fires that are happening right now. Like, we're gonna be in this hurricane, just like embrace it. We're in the hurricane, right? And
I was
what
texting.
happens? What happens while we're in the hurricane?
Wait. So before you need to go to that part, I was like texting Austin and Glenn. I was like, dude, you guys sure you're still down? It's going to be a hurricane. We're like, yeah, we're fine.
Yeah.
And so we get there, and Glenn like did the coolest roast on me ever. He's like, I've seen homeless camp shelters that are set up better than this, because we had a really janky.
It's like nobody wanted to be out in the rain and like try to like set up the
It was just a downpour, and yeah, we're all like, so Glenn is in his truck just doing his thing. You and me are in the back of my Jeep with like the door open and the window, and Austin's on the ground. Just
Austin's trying. We all tried to be in the Jeep, like over the night, but
during the day, like he was sitting on the ground drinking, and we're just drinking and chatting.
Yeah.
And then, like you were saying, no, we're in the middle of the hurricane, and all of a sudden, I start seeing Glenn's truck shake.
Yeah.
And I'm feeling my Jeep shake. And I'm like, dude, is someone like messing with the car? And then Austin's like looking all confused. And it all took us like a hot second to like, dude, this is an earthquake right now.
Yeah. So the final test of like our thing was, of our trip was, well, I mean, I wouldn't say final because we did have some really hot days like in Iowa.
Well, and then the soft top of my Jeep broke.
But yeah, I got to the point, the climax, I would say, of our like close calls trip was the hurricane with an earthquake.
And that wasn't the only earthquake we felt the trip, because I think
another one, yeah.
Our last night there when we were on top of the mountain, because I think our original plan that night was to go out earlier and stuff, and we were gonna like take a few minute nap, which ended up turning like into like a 3-hour nap. And at that point, we get up and it's like 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning.
Yeah.
And we go do our thing, and we come back, and then I get in my car, and I start feeling my Jeep shake for a second. I was like, dude, this is another earthquake.
Yeah. That was nuts. And I look back on it too. Like, so I look at the last 3 years we went to California as lucky trips. The first year we were lucky to have activity, right?
2021, yeah.
The second year we were lucky to get some evidence, right? Some arguable evidence of like,
we found a really
hair, you know.
Yep.
The third year We were just lucky to be alive.
Because
Because we didn't have a lot of Bigfoot activity occur. But we had like a few moments where like, what was that? Huh? But the third year was all just about like, hey, you're lucky you got out,
Dude, it was really weird. It was such a fun trip. It's hard to pick a favorite trip when you look back at all of them. I mean, there's definitely like favorite moments that I favor other than, over other ones. So, but all in all, can't complain. And then I wanted to ask you too, because you kind of said that Southern California seems to have that potential. And you've been to me with this spot before, but we tried doing squatching, but it was like rainy and muddy, so we didn't really get to. And so this was actually your like second time back to this area that we were in, and you actually got to do better research in this spot. So what did you think of the spot in Iowa that we were at?
I think I'm surprised with just like how the forest in that area just kind of sprawls. We did a lot of walking. We covered a lot of ground. And we were there for a couple of nights. And then when everybody broke off, and I stayed one last night because we thought that maybe something interesting was going on, and everyone else had an agenda, and I still had a couple days to kill.
Yeah.
I took a lot of time walking out there and like explored a lot of the trails behind where we were camped, and I was just like impressed with how many different ways. Like I was like, I want to get on a trail and do some walking around at night, but then I got to the point where I was like, there's too much trail. Like I want to go up this way and see what's here, but that could take all night, and I don't. And I want to go in over here, and I'm glad that we traveled this other trail that went back behind here the night before. But it was just like where we were, which wasn't a special place in particular. It was just like a certain point in the forest.
Yeah.
It was so expansive, and that has huge potential. And we surveyed a lot of that area. There's plenty of water. I was surprised with how many different types of like both native and maybe introduced like fruits and berries and things were out there. And like nuts and acorns. Like there's a lot of like
diversity
plant
as far
food,
as
food. And then there's we saw a lot of animals or indicators that animals were in the area. So that was nice. That was a cool treat. And yeah, you didn't have mountains. We weren't in what is a stereotypical Bigfoot country.
You had bluffs, like small rolling hills, I guess. Not even a bluff, but it was like the second night we were there that I think it was after, like, because we had a friend of mine, Luke, was there, and he was like playing guitar. And I think shortly after that, we heard animals go off, right? And we heard that one strange call.
Yeah.
And what really makes me think that there was something there, or like that call could have been something, is you had you and me, and then you had Ontario, at least, seasoned people that are in the field, and we can't identify what that is off the top of our heads.
Right.
Like we were thinking coyote, but we're like, no, that's not a coyote. And then it wasn't a cow. And I would be shocked if a horse did that sound. There wasn't any like houses with farms that had horses there close anyway that we could hear. Wasn't an owl, because we were hearing barred owls all night too and stuff. And so, yeah, it just makes you wonder, and it's just one of those things, man.
Yeah, it's one of those places that if you don't have any surefire activity, it's not one of those places that you like leave feeling like you don't want to waste your time there again.
Right?
It's one of those places that leaves like an impression on you of the potential is still great, and I think we need to go back.
I agree. I'm gonna be going back there all the time and stuff, but that's just me. Kind of as we're wrapping up here, Ron, you're working on some new projects. One of them you sent to me and I got to hear it. So why don't you talk a little bit about that real quickly?
So one of the things I've been doing to occupy my time, or my creative space or whatever, when I'm having issues with the video, I'm trying to get the video out there, but in the downtime, like I'm still very capable and available to do some writing and sound recording. So I've been wanting to do podcasting for several years now on the subject of Bigfoot, and I completed like the first episode of Trailing Giants, which is going to be the podcast, the critical thinking podcast for the Bigfoot enthusiast. And I've been kind of workshopping like its delivery, it's different, like like presentation for a little while now. And I got through the first episode. I feel happy with it. I think it's a good one. I think it works. I mean, you can give more criticism on it.
It's horrible. Don't listen to it. I'm kidding.
The first 40 minutes is like a sound recording of me doing laundry at home.
And then you're doing your taxes for the next.
You just hear that scribbling pencil. Like it's more of an experimental piece. And then at the end, I say something about Bigfoot. No. It changes courses a little bit. I think it's like a portion of it I'm in the field, and then a different portion of it, like I'm doing like a little bit of a history lesson of what eventually some of the conditions that led to Jerry Crew finding his tracks in 1958. So it took a lot of like historical research, and that's just for one episode. For another episode, like it might deep dive like a scientific thing, So it's pretty demanding for me to do the research element of it, but I feel good when I do that investigation. And so like I feel like it's a presentation of things that I care about. And I don't know. I liked working on the first episode. I'm kind of writing another episode in the future. I want to build up a little bit of a backlog, since my main issue as a content developer is consistency.
Yeah.
But I want to roll it out this summer and get some podcasts going.
Get some podcasts, and then you have a backlog, or I guess backlog, catalog, whatever you want to say, of video too. Sitting on
years. Yeah. And I do kind of want to get some of those older investigations up as like an archive, but I also want to tell like long stories too. Like this is like not just our journey in Bluff Creek or that area that, where we've had some activity, or I've had activity in Mendocino National Forest in California. Like I want to like piece those together like a saga, because I'll return to certain locations, and over the course of years, more will develop. And so I kind of want to take advantage of like that. The fact that I don't have anything out, I could still tell a bigger story on a different time scale, like from a 3-year period, or, instead of just like one individual investigation. So I think that there's the silver lining there is you can tell the story a little bit differently through the passage of time. And I'm excited to kind of explore those opportunities once I get everything rolling.
Now, where can people find you if they want to keep up to date with what you're doing?
So I've been guilt tripping myself a lot to get my Facebook page back up and rolling. And my YouTube account is also kind of, it's hard to find because I'm not consistent and prominent, still growing it. But the Facebook page and YouTube account are both Trailing Giants. If you search Trailing Giants on Facebook, it'll pop right up. If you search Trailing Giants on YouTube, you have to put something else in there with it, like Bigfoot, Sasquatch, Ron Reed, like something.
Yeah.
One of the series that I have with that is my kind of like travel log on the Appalachian Trail called Up the Trail. So like Trailing Giants Up the Trail will probably bring it up, and then you can subscribe from that link or whatever. But I really, I kind of cringe a little bit when I think about the older videos and stuff, you know, because you're still learning video editing, and it's like what I know now, if I sat down and did it, would be like a different night and day quality, you know.
Yeah.
But basically what I have up there now is just like travel log, a lot of shaky footage, a lot of
It was filmed on a flip phone.
monologuing, like on the spot, just like talking to a camera instead of, you know, presenting it in a professional manner. But people find that value, you know, they find value in that. They some people really I'm always surprised with how many people like actually care about my perspective on things, you know. Yeah, so I mean, I'm gonna commit myself to kind of updating Trailing Giants on Facebook right now, because one of the things I really like to do is do those like formal investigation write-ups of like the discoveries we've made on those expeditions. And I lost steam, dude. I came back. I had to start paying bills and everything. When I took 5 weeks off to go to California and do that Bigfoot investigation this year, I got back. I did some solid posts, and then I did nothing. And I only got halfway through Bluff Creek, man. Like,
dang, dude.
I need to catch up like my writing. So that's probably what I'll do after like this weekend. I'll put a couple more posts, share a couple more of those photos from August,
Right.
and get that rolling.
So, do we have any plans to come back to Blueberry Bog, Mount Hood area? Yes, I do, Shelby. I do indeed.
We still got to lock down like a date for it. Like whether it's going to be in 2 years or what, you know, we know what we're doing this year. But
if we can pull it off,
we really looked at Mount Hood, like a more comprehensive investigation of it. You and I were this past year, but we like had a couple of budget constraints, and we wanted to go down to Southern California, but we were also wanting to go north to Mount Hood, and we both had like some comprehensive expansion on what we wanted to do for the first time in both of those areas. But we looked at it and we said, we can't do both. So we went down to Southern California, because on the way down, I wanted you to see a little bit of the Mendocino area where I've had some stuff happen, and you wanted me to have some exposure to where you've gotten your thermal footage.
Because we've already been to like Mount Hood together, and you know, so it's like we both seen it. But then you went, you know, because we were trying to go to 2 of your spots, but because of past fires, one of the areas was burned down. So like,
couldn't even find a way back there.
And then so we went to your other spot in Mendocino. Then we went to my spot. Then
I look at that though, and that really that's a testament to our friendship, because we could have gone up to Mount Hood and just done a really like kick-ass investigation, but we prioritized validating each other where we've had our sightings.
Yeah.
I had no regrets about that decision.
I put my fear aside for you too, because I ended up car camping alone, which it was not too bad, but because we got to your spot, we camped the first night on the road together, and then the second night you went off and camped with Bandit.
Yeah, and that was worthwhile.
And I was at the car. I was like, I got to a point where I was like, you know what? I'm not going to do a Knox because I don't really want to stay awake all night. So I'm just going to sleep in peace and let him do his thing. Maybe I won't distract whatever's in the area with me.
Yeah. Meanwhile, I'm like 4 miles from a road and like any help, like on a trail.
Oh yeah. If something happened to you, you're done for.
Yeah. And you know what I hate is I've been out there. That's my third time going out there, and the third time having knocks, you know, like right there. And I just keep going out there. Like, you know, I mean, I haven't been murdered by a Bigfoot yet.
Well, I mean,
but
I sure hope not.
But yeah, that spot's really cool to me. And I want to plan something a little more comprehensive there, just because I've been there 3 times and it's 100% like
Maybe that's what we do. We just do Mendocino and Mount Hood area again.
Yeah, I mean, if you came up, it wouldn't even be that far out of the way. You could come through, like in your way out from back east. You could come up instead of going through Reading. You could be, or maybe if you just went through Reading and you did a little
Kind of just yep,
and then made your way up north from there.
Yeah, that's the way we should do it.
We'll talk about that. We'll figure that out in our downtime. But yeah, there's always at any given point, Tate and I always have like at least a minimum of like 4 expeditions on the back burner, like in our head.
Or like if we have a plan that doesn't work out, we always have a backup.
Yeah.
We're like, well, that's not going to work, so let's just do this.
Yeah. Like, I mean, like if I were just going to do a short list of places we want to, like there's Bluff Creek's always on there. It doesn't go away. Right.
No. Yeah. Never.
We got Mount Hood back up on there. Bumping Lake is due for another.
Washington. Yeah. Yep.
Skookum Meadow and Gifford Pinchot National Forest. We're looking at British Columbia at one point. You know, we're looking at like some stuff in Ontario.
And we're looking at like maybe like even Colorado. Falk. Because I'm going to be back in the Midwest, so we're thinking of doing like a Midwest run.
Right.
Of different areas. So I mean, like,
and so we got all those on the back burner, and right now we've got like enough funding between the two of us for half of one.
That's why we do like one long trip. Half of one.
I think I can get out of state line, but not quite. You know, I can get out of Wisconsin, but
it's tricky. Well, Ron. I do want to thank you for taking the time to do this and coming on and talking about everything. Any last words of advice or just whatever you want to say before we end?
Yeah, if you ever have somebody that gives terrible advice, still hear them out, because every once in a while they make a really good idea. Like a
Just so people know who you're talking about.
Oh, was I talking about somebody?
I think, yeah. I think you were.
Yeah. I don't know. It's been fun. Glad you had me on.
Have a great night, everybody.
Good night.
Make sure you check back on this channel to see when I'm doing another live. I will be doing this again. I haven't decided the guest yet, so just stay tuned for that. Have a great night, all. Ron, have a great night. It's been real.